Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-minute Histories videos. And today I'm in South Baltimore, and behind me is the Hanover Street Bridge. It's been here for 106 years, I believe, and since 1993 it's been dedicated as the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge, and that's why I'm here today. If you're following along real time, you know we're heading into November 11th, which is Veterans Day, and we at Baltimore Heritage thought we would say thank you in maybe our geeky history way, but say thank you to our veterans by doing a story on this bridge behind me. So let's jump in. In 1916 is when it was built. It actually replaced an earlier bridge, a wooden bridge that was built in 1856 to connect the north and the south shores of the Patapsco River. In part, that bridge was built so that farmers in Anne Arundel County could get their goods over the bridge into Baltimore. But I think maybe in larger part, it was built to get Baltimoreans over going the other way on the bridge to Anne Arundel County when there were a slew of casinos and resorts that were opening up along the shore because Anne Arundel County had notoriously lax alcohol and gambling laws. So that wooden bridge did very well for over half a century, but by the early 1900s there was a new machine that was sort of becoming dominant in the transportation industry, and that was the motorized truck. And that old wooden bridge was good for carrying people and horses and carts to and from, but not so good for the truck that was now becoming the dominant way people got their goods to market. And so in the late 1910s, the city decided that it would replace that wooden bridge, and it went big. It went big by starting by hiring the preeminent bridge engineer in the country at the time, a gentleman named John Edward Greiner. It didn't hurt that Greiner was a Baltimorean. He had spent 20 years at the B&O Railroad, ending up as their chief bridge engineer. In 1904, Mayor McLean appointed him to the 1904 Fire Commission to help evaluate the structural integrity of buildings downtown. And he had started his own firm here in Baltimore by the time, the J.E. Greiner Company. In 1916, he tackled this bridge, and he went on to build lots of bridges across the country. He built bridges over the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh, over the Ohio River in Louisville, over the James River in Richmond, the Tennessee River in Chattanooga, and the Pequannock River in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I'll bet you know two of the bridges, in addition to this bridge, that he built in Maryland. One is that fantastic railroad bridge that connects Havre de Grace and Perryville over the Susquehanna River in the north part of the bay. In 1941, the American Institute of Steel Construction awarded it the Most Beautiful Bridge in America award. That's pretty neat. And I know you'll know another bridge that Greiner built here in Maryland, and that is the William Preston Lane Jr. Memorial Bridge. And if you're scratching your head and you say, no, I kind of don't know that, well, yes, you do. We call it the Bay Bridge. He is the one who built that 123 steel span bridge to get us between the eastern shore and western shore of Maryland. Back here, he had on the Patapsco, he had an age-old problem. He needed to get transportation over the river, but those were the trucks, and he needed to get transportation under the bridge, the boats, so he had to have a bridge that would allow for both, and he turned to an age-old solution, and that was something called a bascule bridge. If you're scratching your head at that, many of us colloquially call that a drawbridge. Of course, where a section of it, usually the middle, but not always, a section of it moves up and down to let water traffic flow through. Bascule, if you're wondering, comes from the French word for an old balance scale. And if you think of a balance scale where you put stuff on one side and then you put weights on another, and you do so until it evens out, the same mechanics are used in building the bridge behind me as in that ancient scale. But we didn't get just any old bascule bridge. We got a Rawl system bascule bridge, named for the inventor Theodore Rawl. And in a regular drawbridge or bascule bridge, the leaves, that section that opens up, go up and down. In a Rawl system, there is a short but sturdy set of railroad tracks under each side, so when the leaves go up, they also get pulled back, creating a wider opening for even bigger boats. And that seems pretty neat, and I think it is, but it was not widely copied around the country. And if you look for at the definitive source of old bridges, at least as far as I could tell, a website called bridgehunter.com, they say there are only 4 raw system bascule bridges still in use in America, ours being one of them. So pretty neat. In addition to being pretty neat, it's also pretty gorgeous. It's a Beaux-Arts style bridge, and the sort of watch towers in the middle where the leaves go up, those 4 watchtowers give it a classical look. It's pretty, but it has had its share of problems, maybe more than its fair share of problems. Just 6 years after it opened, it had its first major set of cracks requiring bridge engineers to come in and put in special concrete. Then a year after that, one of its pilings had sunk so far into the bottom of the river that it had to be shored up with another expensive bridge engineering technique. And in 1935, in January, a 10-foot section went kerplunk into the Patapsco River. 2 months later, followed by a 7-foot section. It had to be closed and redecked at the time. The chief engineer for the city at that time quipped that, quote, somebody was asleep when the bridge was being built. But it turned out to be pretty sturdy, if needing a little love here and there. It was redecked in 1970, and then again just a few years ago, and it looks like it is heading into many, many, many more years of use. Let's wrap up going back to the dedication to veterans of the Vietnam War. In 1992, a group called the Memorial Day Project began lobbying City Council to change the name. There was a memorial, the Vietnam War Memorial is near here, and I believe they thought renaming the bridge would give sort of prominence and synergy to that as well. And in 1993, they got their way. The City Council passed a bill, Mayor Schmoke signed it, and the bridge was renamed. The celebration for it was an enormous one. 2,000 people, Baltimore City, fireboats out here spraying their cannons. Really great, including a wonderful plaque at the base celebrating and dedicated to veterans of the Vietnam War. Let me wrap up with a quote from one veteran, a gentleman named John Avarella, who was head of the Baltimore Chapter 451 of the Vietnam Veterans of America group. And at the dedication, he said, quote, I can think of no better way to honor those who served. This is a time of joy for the veterans community. And I'll end by saying that I hope today, as we drive over the bridge, we remember Mr. Avarella's words and the veterans who have served our country. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.